That is fine. No business is being conducted, but we've got a quorum. So
All right, excellent. Thank you, sir. Well, good morning and welcome. It is a bit of a gloomy day in Nashville. I don't know what the rest of the state looks like, but certainly the rain is welcome. So that's a blessing in and of itself. It's good to see everybody this morning. Just a quick reminder, of course, that we are being live streamed. The meeting is recorded, and of course, it will be archived. So before, though, we jump into the meeting, the meat of the meeting itself, I would like to ask Brian to call the roll for us, and let's make this official.
thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. In accordance with Tennessee Code Annotated Section 844-108C3, there are two questions that need to be answered by regents for the record. First, can the regent simultaneously hear and speak with others participating in the meeting? Second, is the regent alone in the room? If the answer to both questions is yes, the regent can simply answer yes to both questions. Anyone who is not alone, please identify other people present in the room with you. When I call your name, please answer these two questions. Governor Lee. Regent Apple.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent Burdine.
Here and yes to both questions.
Regent George. Regent Gill. Regent Green.
Here and yes to both questions.
Commissioner Hatcher. Commissioner House. Regent House. Regent Lee. Regent Long.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Powers.
Present and yes to both.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Yes to both. Thank you.
Commissioner Schwinn. Regent Shelton.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Varlin.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Wamp. Regent White.
Here, yes, and yes.
Madam Chair, your board is assembled.
Thank you very much. Another housekeeping item that we're all quite familiar with now concerning our necessity to meet electronically. Of course, this is by far the most efficient way for us to meet, to discuss items in a timely way that we'll be spending time on in our next regularly scheduled quarterly meeting on December 1, which will be here before we know it. Given that this necessity to meet electronically is now a non-controversial and routine item for us, I would propose, as we've done now a number of times, that this necessity to meet electronically be adopted by unanimous consent. But of course, as always, if anyone would prefer to have an individual vote on this, feel free to object, and in that case, we'll be happy to call a roll call vote. But if I hear no objection, thank you. The necessity to meet electronically is adopted. Thank you all. Chancellor, what is on your mind this morning for us as we begin?
Well, good morning and happy almost Thanksgiving to the group of people to whom I am most thankful for. It's good to be with you this morning. Just to give you a few updates, it was my honor to present our fiscal budget to Governor Lee, the Finance and Administration Commissioner Jim Bryson, Chief Operating Officer Brandon Gibson, and our State Budget Director David Thurman on last Thursday. As you know, THEC compiles the budget for all of higher ed, and so Dr. House presented the overall budget. Governor Lee and the finance team were particularly interested in how we had used or put our historic level of funding for career and technical education to work that we had received last year. I was pleased to report to them that we have most of the projects underway and that we have been able to reduce our wait list already from 11,000 down to 7,000. And that number will continue to drop as we finish out the building projects that we have in line and are able to hire additional faculty with those dollars. So again, so very thankful to the governor and the legislators for providing that level of support for career and technical education all across the great state. As you know, the governor's budget will not be final until he presents this to the General Assembly in February. So we're anxious to hear what special projects may be lying in wait for us for this next year. To give you a quick update on our presidential searches, you also are aware that we do have 3 searches currently underway. That is TCAT Murfreesboro, TCAT Athens, and TCAT Memphis, all due to presidential retirements. At TCAT Murfreesboro, the search committee, chaired by our Vice Chair, Emily Reynolds, reviewed 27 applicants for the position. We are down to 2 finalists, which will be doing on-campus forums and interviews, and I will be conducting one-on-one interviews with them later in the week, with being ready to give to you my final selection by December 1st. The presidential search at TCAT Athens is being chaired by Regent Danny Varlin. That search committee reviewed 19 applicants and selected 2 finalists who will participate in their own campus forums and interviews on November 17th. Again, I plan to have the selection for that position ready to present to you by December 1. The board also, as you recall, approved the criteria for the next president at TCAT Memphis during a special called meeting October 31st. Vice Chair Reynolds will again serve as our chair for that search committee, and we are so thankful for her diligence and doing double duty on these searches. She's joined by Regents George, Powers, and Lee, along with committee members and representatives of campus, community, local business, and civic leaders. It is our goal to have that president in place by March 1st. So, Madam Chair, those are my updates for today, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you. And I want to add a personal thanks to Regent Green, who, for the interviews at the TCAT Murfreesboro last week, I could not be present, and she graciously stepped in and moved those meetings along quite well. So those were 2 good sessions. Thank you for your leadership there. It is appreciated. Let's move on then to our agenda. Oh, and by the way, everybody, Nathan Garrett today has his COE accreditation team on campus. So cross your fingers, right, Chancellor? We were with him last night as we welcome that team. So I think they're in great shape. But again, I know he would appreciate any good thoughts coming his way today for he and his team at the TCAT Nashville. Let's move then into our agenda. And first we have 2 items coming up, both of which I gather we may see on a consent agenda on December 1. I'll come to Dr. Fox first, who has a policy review for us from the business and finance perspective. Alicia, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you all hear me? My camera is not working this morning.
Okay, well, we can hear you loud.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So as far as I did not have the policy for approval this morning, I actually have that on the December agenda meeting. I was planning to give you all just a quick update for the finance office and then provide a look forward for what we are going to look at in December board meeting, if that works for you all.
Yeah, that's perfect. This is just our review, no action today. So thank you. You are right on. Thank you.
So I did want to go a little more in depth to what Chancellor Tidings mentioned in her update regarding the governor's budget and moving forward, and give you all a quick update on the THEC recommendations. They are recommending $150 million in state appropriations this year in operating. So to give you, that's $37.6 million for community colleges and $9.4 for the TCATs to fully fund the outcomes funding. And this is tied to a 0 to 3% non-binding recommendation for tuition and fees. To give you a little bit of perspective there, you can see in FY 21-22, their recommendation was $36 million. Last year, it was $90 million, which if you'll recall was a historic request at that year. So $150 million is what they are looking at. They requested this year. Again, inflation has increased over the past year. So that is what is driving that $150 million to fully fund the outcomes formula. Below that, you can see special initiatives in operating that THEC is recommending. You'll recall that we presented those as a group to you all in the September board meeting. We were excited to see that THEC picked up several of those initiatives to move forward. So you can see here they picked up the 4.2 million recurring for our student support network. This is the package that included the mental health counselors and the social service coordinators for the community colleges and the TCATs. In addition, they are recommending $3 million for our Modernizing the Learning Experience portfolio. And this one included the CRM software that was presented to you all a little bit more in depth at the retreat, along with the Center for Innovation and Teaching. And they've also recommended $4.4 million non-recurring for our safety and security needs on the operating side. So excited to see that of the 8 initiatives that we presented to you all in September, THEC has picked up 3 of those to bring forward in their recommendation for the governor's budget. So exciting news on the operating front. We'll see what moves forward, obviously, in the spring, but exciting news to see those. Next slide, please. And then on the capital outlay side, the 3 projects that TBR requested, totaling $127.4 million on their recommendations. Those did land in the 7, 8, and 9 slots. But you can see here, number 7 was the Jackson Regional Workforce Training Center. Next slide, please. Number 8 was the TCAT Paris Henry County Higher Education Center. And then number 9 was the Northeast State TCAT Elizabethton Carter County Higher Education Center. So those 3 outlay projects that we brought forward, those landed in the 7, 8, and 9 slot. And then moving on to capital maintenance, THEC is recommending 59 projects for TBR, totaling $56.7 million. I did not put the breakdown of each campus on there, but we have a total of 59 projects in there. 28 million of that 56.7 is for TCATs. And capital maintenance projects at TCATs, those are specifically broken out and shown individually on there, but are included in the total. And then also on the capital maintenance side, they are recommending some special initiatives on the capital maintenance side. And so of those special initiatives, they are putting forward 2, an ADA project special initiative at $106.5 million total. 35.7 million of that would be to TBR for just various projects to bring our buildings up to current ADA standards. As you all know, many of our buildings were constructed significantly prior to 1990 with the passage of the ADA rules. And so we really want to make a gap, make up that gap there and increasing our ADA compliance on all of our campuses. So we were excited to see this one come through. And they've also added some additional money for a special project for safety and security on the capital maintenance side. So they are recommending another 4.1 million for TBR for hardware, cameras, fencing. So in total, if you put together the capital maintenance and capital operating, TBR is looking at 8.5 million for safety and security upgrades if both of those were to be funded. So that would make a significant impact on the safety and security initiatives on our campus. So those are the current THEC recommendations that were approved by their board on November 3rd. Again, now going to the governor's office and FNA to take a look at those, and fingers crossed, we'll see what comes through, but a lot of good news for TBR campuses going forward related to those recommendations. And then on my next slide, I just have just some bullet points to let you all know what to look forward to at the December board meeting. I will be bringing you all the October revised budgets for the community colleges, the TCATs, and the system office for approval at that board meeting. We'll also bring forward for information only the CFI information or the financial performance for the community college and TCATs, and then the presentation of the consolidated financial report for our LGIs. This will also be information only. And then I will bring forward the policy that was referenced at the beginning. We do have a policy revision bringing forward for your approval related to our bid thresholds for our purchasing departments. And I think that covers my update for finance.
That was a good update. Chancellor, do you have any further comments on the THEC recommendations budget-wise? It looks very generous.
Yeah, no, we're very pleased with this. With regard to the projects, they did submit all projects that they had. They had 9 projects. They put all 9 projects into the submission to the governor's office. So we'll see where those go. We have had additional discussions with F&A regarding our projects, so we're very hopeful that those will move forward expeditiously. But Alicia, thank you very much for that great job on discussing each one of the points, and we look forward to bringing that to you again in December to vote on.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from the regents?
This is Regent Varland. Is there anything, I mean, it sounds fantastic, but is there anything that we're sort of, gosh, what are we going to do about that? It's not covered. You know, is there anything we need that people are thinking in the different areas they're concerned because something's not covered? It's hard for me to remember everything we asked for in seeing this. So I'm being lazy and not going back and looking.
There is one area with regard to the marketing that we had wished had made the list. And Dr. McCormick and I actually have a meeting scheduled to talk a little bit further with that with the governor's office to see if we can't at least make a case for that area. But other than that one, no, we feel like we're in good shape and very blessed to be where we are. I think
it's very generous.
Yeah, and I think I've shared with this group many times that Tennessee is in such an extraordinary place for this time. When I attend national meetings, it is almost an embarrassment of riches to be able to talk about the great things that are happening here at Tennessee and how well we have been supported and funded by our state, by the governor and the legislators. It is not happening across this country. And so we are in just a very enviable position by others across the country.
Chancellor, I'll echo that. I've spent some time with Alicia as we prepare for the Finance Committee, and I think it's a big increase, maybe 36 million way back just 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're being granted 150 million. So kudos to our relationship with our legislators and them believing in our execution.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Good discussion. If there's nothing else, Dr. Fox, let's take up the purchasing policy revisions, please.
Sure. So as our purchasing policy, we are bringing to you all, and I think I did not include the slide on this one. We are bringing forward to you the recommendation that has come through our Council of Buyers, our Business Affairs Subcouncil, and also our President's Council. This is essentially a revision to our purchasing policy to update our bid thresholds. And to just give you a little background, our current bid thresholds are up to $10,000. Purchases do not require anything to be bid out. So essentially you can purchase from any vendor up to $10,000. Any purchases between $10,000 and $50,000 require an informal bid process, which requires that the bid go out to vendors, to at least 3 vendors to get either an email or a mail copy of a bid for whatever that product or service is. Anything above $50,000 requires a formal bid process, similar to that of an RFP, where they are required to be mailed back in a packet, all open together at the same time, and then documentation of the opening of the bid required. As we all know, the value of $1 has changed in the time period that $10,000 doesn't buy what it used to. And so we are requesting an update of those bid thresholds. This is in line with several of the LGIs that after the Focus Act initiated their own policies for bid thresholds. Currently, we follow the state policy of bid thresholds, as other institutions did at that time. Again, LGIs moved away from that as they moved separately out of the system. The state of Tennessee has noted they have interest in that, but it would require a statute change for them to be able to update their bid thresholds. So we are bringing this to you today, recommending that we update our bid thresholds just to make it a little easier for us to procure products and services and still do that in a competitive manner. So we are recommending anything up to $25,000 does not require a bid. Between $25,000 and $100,000 would follow that informal bid process of 3 vendors, allowing them to submit that via email or mail. Anything over $100,000 would move to the formal bid process, being a sealed bid at that point. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about that, but essentially it's just a dollar amount change for our bid threshold, and that's the only update to that policy.
And Alicia, it's Emily. I want to make sure I understand this correctly. What we are doing is consistent with what our colleagues, the LGIs, have done.
Mm-hmm.
But state policy would require a statute change?
Yes, so they are remaining at the $10,000, no bid, 10 to 50, informal, and 50. It would require a lot of red tape for them to change their bid thresholds. We have the ability to do that on our own as part of our board approval policy process. Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just going to add, Vice Chair Reynolds, there's certain aspects of purchasing statutes where we are part of the state, and then there's certain aspects where we are carved out. The bid thresholds and some of these purchasing issues, we're carved out. So for a while, we've just been following what the state does as a matter of practice, even though we're not legally required to do that. This just gives us more flexibility to operate better, to probably follow the policy better, and to make better decisions.
Okay, that's important context. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this? And so we are likely to see this then as a consent agenda item on December 1.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, on both of the policies we're looking at today, if anybody needs a closer read, that is in our packets for today.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anything else for Dr. Fox?
I am all done. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good job. Thank you. Russ, you were up next with the policy change in academic policies and programs.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds and Dr. Tidings, members of the board. The background here is a clerical cleanup to a policy this board had previously approved. And the heavy lifting on this was done by Dr. Heidi Lemming and her team, so I hope I do it justice today. Several meetings back, this board approved changes to the undergraduate academic retention and GPA standards policy. The section that's now coming before y'all for background and that will be on the December 1st board meeting agenda inadvertently did not include students seeking all types of credentials. In other words, the language had only applied to those seeking the associate's degree. The language ought to have included students pursuing really any credential. And so the revision that's in your materials simply adds 3 words, and it adds or certificate seeking students to those who are also seeking the associate's degree. That way the policy is applicable to essentially every student, which was the initial intent. This simply cleans up the language to make that obvious and to holistically apply to all students.
How did we catch it?
Honestly, campus brought it to our attention. And so once they did, we went back through the process. So the sub-councils have also reviewed it. And so everyone got a look at it. But thanks to a campus for bringing it to our attention.
Good. Good. Questions for Russ? All right, good catch. We'll look at this one on December 1 again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Dr. Deaton. And to our Kim McCormick, Dr. McCormick, you're a busy lady. You've got 3 items, so come on up and just keep going.
I do. Good morning, everyone. Vice Chancellor, Chancellor, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I do have an update today. This is not a formal presentation, but I do want to review with this body what we will be presenting at the board meeting in December. Once we finish gathering everything, we'll be meeting with both Regents Farland and Regent Burdine to preview everything before we actually present. So I do want to start, I believe, with government relations. We can go to the next slide. All right, so in December, we plan for John Williams to recap again the legislative priorities that we all have and know that we have. We're also going to overview the 2020 election. Chancellor has sent to you all the actual spreadsheet that we have showing all of the new members and the composition of the General Assembly. We know we have 20 new people to meet. So John Williams and Patrick Boggs have done a wonderful job over the summer and this fall, actually meeting with every member of the House and Senate Education and Finance committees individually in their districts. So now we're going to start the charge of going out and meeting these 20 new members, and we look forward to that. It should be a very interesting session next year. And then the other thing that John will present to you all is the legislation filed to date in December. As you all know, bills are beginning to be filed already. So that compilation will continue until December. So we'll have an up-to-date list at that point. So in the government relations, that will be it. And Regent Reynolds, if you want me to move on to the workforce development update, I will go ahead and do that unless there are any questions on government relations.
Yeah, let's just pause and see if anybody needs you.
Okay.
And we can certainly come back. All right, so hearing none, let's go ahead.
One more, Carol. All right, so as you all know, Dr. Sisk has hit the ground running in workforce development with the Center for Workforce Development, and what he intends on doing in December is the following things. One, a Blue Oval City update. He'll talk about the NDA, the onboarding of employees, the early skills training launch that he's going to be doing with Ford. He has weekly meetings. Chancellor, I believe you're on those most of the time as well as Heath McMillan. So there'll be lots to talk about with Blue Oval City. We're also going to talk about partnerships with other state agencies. Dr. Sisk, myself, the attorneys in our office have all been working with the Department of Safety to put an interagency agreement together so that basically we will be partnering with them, sharing our resources, i.e. trucks, so that they can continue to do the third-party testing certification that they do at safety. So we have working very well with them. Also, Jeff is in communication right now with the Department of Transportation. This is going to be exciting to talk about, where we do a regional-based CDL training using the workforce development model for all of the TDOT employees across the state that need to be driving trucks. And then we're also working with state ECD. The business development staff training is coming up. There's a new person in charge of workforce development at ECD, and it looks like she is going to be wonderful to work with. Jeff is going to be going to one of their first trainings. It was going to be in December, now it will be in February, of all the business development officers across the state, so that he can talk about the center and what we are doing here at TBR and how we can work closely with them to be out in the state meeting with business and industry potential partners or those businesses that want to expand. So that is going to be wonderful information. And then he's going to highlight select workforce training projects that we see across our TBR institutions currently, some of the things that boots on the ground work that is happening with the institutions across the state. And then we'll also be giving you a workforce development update of all the training that has occurred over the past year. So we'll talk about the hours that have actually been collected across the state. So he will have lots of wonderful information. Are there any questions on this? And if not, I will roll on right on into strategic advancement.
Hey, Kim and Chancellor, if I'm sure this is probably part of Jeff's, but on Blue Oval City, could we also have kind of a quick construction update, you know, just in general to kind of know bigger picture what's going on?
So we want to have Dick do
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. We can get Dick Tracy to give us an update on that. We are, for everyone's edification this morning, we are moving right along. We have bid projects out on that. We are keeping our fingers crossed as those come back in that they stay within budget. As you know, from the early beginning of that, we did have to go back and ask for additional dollars out of the FNA and governor's office, and they did up the project to $55 million now. It started out at 45. We do hope that we are going to come in within that, and then the dollars for the equipment will be in addition to that. That's an additional $9 million that will come in on top for the equipment. But things are moving right along. So far, we have not hit any other major issues. In discussions with the committee that we meet with on a weekly basis with regard to that, I think you are all aware that water and electricity to the site, you know, was a bit of an issue. We did drill well, we're looking at well, but there is discussion now that we may end up with public water once the building actually comes online. They are trying to run those pipes to that piece of property. So keep your fingers crossed that that comes to fruition. It would be much more efficient for us to be on county facility for that rather than having to be on the well for that. So we're cautiously optimistic that's going to continue through.
Thank you. All right, anybody else for Kim? All right.
Chancellor.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute myself. Just a quick question on the facilities for utilities related to Blue Oval. You're saying that that additional infrastructure for water would be on their side, not on this project side. Is that what you're saying? Because I know that's an expensive investment.
No, we're hoping it's going to end up going to our door. That in the beginning, they did not think they could run it there, but we've had different discussions now with county. And so the county is working to get water to our door. And we're hoping that will all come to pass by the time the building is up. There's also discussions about the power substations that are being built. And we've gotten good news there as well, that there may be additional substation put in that will help generate power for us at that point too. We are on temporary power for construction. So we're again hoping that both of those will come to fruition, and it is looking pretty positive right now. There's some land acquisition that has to take place as well, so that's why I say there's still a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot before the water gets to our door.
Gotcha. I think my question was, is the municipality footing the bill for the infrastructure extension?
Effort between the municipality and the state.
Okay, great.
Not
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you. Have to foot that.
That was the question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I do have one more section. So also in December, and with strategic advancement, Chris Perkins is going to be doing an update on the fiscal year 2022 system fundraising report. As you know, in September, we talked about this TBR Foundation and what they have done to raise funds and support for the system. But the report that we'll be doing in December is the Community College annual report. And I will put a teaser out here today that we may have raised more money than ever this fiscal year for the community colleges. So Chris will be talking about that and what all our colleges have done. So Vice Chair, that is all I have this morning.
That's a good teaser. Thank you. Anybody else for Dr. McCormick? All right, then Russ, we are coming back your way with the preview on Chattanooga State Strategic Plan. And as Dr. there she is coming up, Dr. Axford.
There she is, yes. So thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. And just to set up Dr. Ashford, well, looking ahead to December 1st, the board will have 4 strategic plans coming before them from the community colleges. This will conclude the 13 over the past year. So all will be current. One of those 4 will, of course, be Chattanooga State. And in order to ensure that Dr. Ashford can be at her SAC-COC meeting on December 1st, we have her here today to give the board background on the strategic plan, which again, hopefully can be a consent item at the board's pleasure on December 1st. Obviously, this plan has been reviewed with Dr. Tidings and staff, and we will be recommending it for approval on December 1st. But today, I want to turn the mic over to Dr. Ashford to present it to the board.
Good morning, Dr. Deaton, and good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor Tidings, and members of the board. I am very grateful for the opportunity to be with you this morning and presenting our strategic plan at Chattanooga State. Before I move on to the next slide, I just want to share that our strategic plan is an ongoing document, as it should be, and it's one that we continue to update as time progresses. So really what I'm presenting to you is a new frame around our existing strategic plan that continues to evolve every month, every year. So next slide, please, Carol. So first, I'd like to share our vision. And this is a 5-year vision that we've recently come out with this year. In fact, I presented this as the president's vision for the next 5 years at our convocation. I'm really excited about this. That by 2027, 5,000 Chattanooga State students of every race and income level will earn a credential that creates a pathway to family-sustaining wages. Now, I'm very intentionally emphasizing a few words when I say this, and that is, we'll earn a credential. We all know the world of education is changing, the world of work is changing, and sometimes that credential can be a 6-week-long non-credit certification, an industry recognized certification. It could be a TCAT diploma or certificate, and recall that Chattanooga State is the only institution in the system where the TCAT is part of the administrative structure of the college. So this could be, that credential could be a TCAT diploma or certificate. And of course, it could be an associate's degree that either creates a pathway to directly to work or a pathway on to transfer. And the piece about a family sustaining wage. So notice I'm not saying we're just going to put out people earning degrees. Of course, that's very important. It's very important to our funding formula. It's very important for our students. But we are going to be more intentional about looking at programming that leads to someone really improving their lives financially, their prosperity for the future because they were a student with us. And as I look at our funding formula and some of the formula enhancements, that now STEM majors will be majors that create additional funding when students earn those credentials. And I think that's also reflective of the way even our state government is looking at higher education. We're wanting students into careers that lead to high-paying jobs. It's also the way that TBR is going under Dr. Tidings and Dr. Deaton's vision of moving forward with reimagining community colleges, or Project Calypso, as it was originally named, in looking at awarding students with credentials, certifications early on in their careers in community colleges. So I'm very excited about this new vision, and I can't wait to share more with you. So next slide, Carol. Okay, so a big lift of what we've done with our strategic plan is frame our strategic work within our newly stated purpose, values, and mission.
And we had a couple of summers ago, actually, a wide scale process with a lot of involvement, both on and off campus, to create our purpose, our values, and our mission, and then have conversations about the extent to which we are living our values. So I kind of want to walk you through these and share examples of what we do reflective of these things. So our purpose is that we support and empower everyone in our community to learn without limits. And I'd like to share a story about Greg Atkins, who yesterday we had our legislative lunch. And I presented, of course, updates about the college and got to allow some students to share their voices and experience. And Greg Atkins is a student who was in our Bledsoe County Prison Program. And he is now, as of today, 70 days out of prison. And one of his first orders of business when he was released was to continue his education that he started in prison on our campus. So now he's with us in person, but because of the Bledsoe County Prison Program, we were able to support and empower everyone, even if they're in prison, to learn without limits, the limitations of being in prison. And so when I heard Greg's story, I knew he embodied our purpose. Our values, we have 5 values that we really focus on, and we cultivate an inclusive environment. And I want to share some of the work that we're doing in our Hispanic community, both off campus and on campus. So we've been very intentional since we know that our Hispanic population is growing in our community, and it's certainly growing on our campus. And so we've translated all of our recruiting documents, our view books, into Spanish. We conduct Spanish-based FAFSA information sessions and college information sessions in communities, not on our campus necessarily, in communities, so that there's not a barrier of transportation. We recently hosted Latin Fest on our campus, where we were able to celebrate Latin cultures, but also have educational workshops. We also have our Latin American Student Organization, where our students who are Hispanic have a safe place. And this is our largest student organization. And I recently attended one of the meetings, and it was wonderful to hear our students' stories. We care about the well-being of each other. Of course, this is huge, especially post-pandemic. And I think we all, on all of our campuses, really shined in supporting one another. And so to that end, we have not only a Helping Hands Fund for students, we've created an Employee Assistance Fund. So if employees are having emergencies, we're able to, and these are all donations of employees to help other employees. We have, of course, our food pantry that supports our students with food insecurity, but also some of our employees who have issues with food insecurity. We instill trust through integrity and transparency. This has been a huge focus of mine in the 5.5 years that I've been at the college, of being very open and very transparent in the way things are run. It started with a very transparent policy review process, to making available on our website all of the minutes from cabinet meetings. And we've really kicked it up a notch to having all of our council presidents, faculty senate president, support staff president, and our professional staff association president, they are now members of cabinet and meet with the executive leaders of the college every week and are part of the official highest level decision making of the college. We encourage fearless innovation and resilience. Resilience, again, a very important word post-pandemic, that we encourage people to fail. And what do I mean by I encourage you to fail? I encourage you to try new things and create a safe space that if in trying something new, it doesn't work out, that's okay. You tried something new. The one phrase I never want to hear, and you probably can predict what I'm going to say, is we've always done it that way. So we don't like that phrase. And we collaborate to build a better future. Boy, our collaborations happen both on and off campus on a daily basis to make our college a better place for our students and our community. And a huge example for us, our shining example in the entire community of a very recent and intentional collaboration, is our Construction Career Center. We have officially had our ribbon cutting of our Construction Career Center, and this is a partnership with Hamilton County Schools, Hamilton County Government, City of Chattanooga Government, Associated General Contractors, and community organizations, community partners, neighborhoods. And I say neighborhoods because this is a center at an old elementary school in a very impoverished neighborhood where transportation is an issue and access to high quality education is an issue. So there is both high school dual enrollment programming done through our TCAT, plus adult learning programming done through TCAT and our non-credit, in the trades, in masonry, carpentry, plumbing, electrical, electricity, wiring. And I'm very excited that this has just opened. And again, it was a huge collaboration from our community. And our mission, we are Chattanooga State, a dedicated team that delivers accessible, innovative learning opportunities that surpass expectations. Every time someone comes to campus for a tour, and I tour them through our engineering facilities, TCAT facilities, health sciences, and everything else, they say, wow, I never knew you had all of this here. Together, we enrich the lives of students and their families, develop a talented workforce, and partner with our community to lead boldly into the future. And now I'd like to share a little bit more about our 5 pillars in our strategic plan, and I'll elaborate on those a little bit with each one. So Carol, if you could go to the next slide, please. So our strategic themes, first of all, holistic student support, providing students support, not just in the classroom and academic support, which we focus a lot on that. We're developing an academic support center with wraparound tutoring happening both in the classroom through supplemental instruction and very targeted in tutoring happening on campus, but also the non-academic supports. And one of those is an exciting partnership that we have with CARTA, which is our local public transportation. And so every, and we're using philanthropy for this as well. We started by using HERF funds, but now we use philanthropy. Every Chattanooga State student, by showing their ID, gets to ride CARTA for free. And it doesn't matter if it's the weekend, it doesn't matter. We provide that for our students through foundation funds. And I'm so excited about that. In the first year of this, we had over 8,000 rides on CARTA. And I'm so proud that we offer this for our students. Teaching excellence. I'm so proud of the work of our faculty. You may have heard that Chattanooga State has completely changed the fundamental architecture of the college in moving to a 7-week based semester. And so our faculty had to learn to redesign their syllabus, how to teach effectively in a condensed semester. And that training goes on and on. You know, we've done the other for 50 years of 15-week semesters. So of course, 7-week is going to take years to perfect. And we continue through our teaching and learning center called CARE. We continue to provide additional training for our faculty on an ongoing basis. Also, in teaching excellence, we are moving to become a 100% open educational resources campus where students will have access to books in a non-traditional format without having to purchase them. And what we're hearing from the faculty who've really embraced this is has helped them to be better teachers because now they are the curators of the content of their courses. Program innovation. This is an exciting area and so many new things go into this. And I'm excited to share that we're doing a lot of work with, of course, VW and now other partners in the world of electric vehicles, of course, as is happening with Blue Oval City. We are developing an associate and applied science degree program in electric vehicles that will are TCAT programming will be able to feed into that for students to go on and complete an AAS, an electric vehicle. We've worked with VW to develop the curriculum. And we're also had this domino effect situation happening where we are relocating. We've just purchased property to relocate the TCAT truck driver training program. When that facility is built, we'll make it so that eventually we can move our current diesel engine lab to this space so that we could renovate the diesel engine space to make that an electric vehicle training facility that both the TCAT and the credit side will use. Next slide, please. Organizational culture and inclusive practices is fundamental to everything we do at the college. And I'm excited to share that a couple of, well, it's been probably a year and a half, 2 years ago now, Chattanooga State was one of 10 colleges, 10 community colleges from across the nation to be selected to participate in the Race and Equity Leadership Academy. And we focused on diversifying our faculty. And so in coming up with recruiting strategies to reach a broader audience to better reflect our student population, but not just recruiting, but also building our talent from within and helping our existing employees to move up into faculty positions and get the education they need to do that. Also, our adjunct equity project. So we've worked to, we're currently renovating a building on our campus, and there will now be an adjunct workspace in that area, and trying to focus very intentionally on making the adjunct faculty experience more equal to a full-time faculty experience in terms of the support we provide them. And fiscal stewardship. Of course, none of this works if we can't pay for it. And so we've worked really hard and with great discipline and focus to improve our financial ratios that the system thankfully looks at, including our composite financial index, and we've improved those tremendously. We've made major budget adjustments to reflect our fiscal realities in our world of declining enrollment that we've seen. It was already on the decline before the pandemic, and of course now we've seen a much speedier decline. And I'm really proud to share that we have reduced our expenses by almost $4 million in order to right the ship with declining enrollment. And that has, again, taken great discipline and focus. And I'm really proud of the entire college for the sacrifices we've made to do that. Also, we've developed a new process of just presenting the budget to the college community. Rather than presenting it by academic, by unit, by organizational structure, we're presenting it by strategic plan, by each of these strategic themes, so that people can understand how we invest our funds to support each of these areas. A couple of other things related to the strategic themes. So we are currently going through a process of revising every job description at the college, and all job descriptions will now be organized by strategic theme, so that in each category, every employee can see how the work that they do relates to the strategic plan. So our strategic plan is truly not just a bunch of words on a piece of paper that we all forget about. People are living it every single day in the jobs that they do, and we remind them of that. One of the ways we remind them of that is I do an employee communication that goes out every week. In fact, you should have some examples of those in your materials for today. And in that, I relate what's happening on campus, updates to our strategic themes, to our purpose, mission, and values, and also to our vision. You will see at least one of those communications that I gave you an example of, sharing, I think, a podcast where leaders are talking about the way the world of work is going and community college education is going. And I relate that back to the work that we're doing. And I use that employee communication even as a call to action and to make people aware of the direction we're heading on a very, very regular basis. And again, support the strategic themes. Okay, and next slide, please, Carol. So where do we want all of this to lead? So of course, we will continue to refine our measures, but some of the things we're looking at, of course, is our enrollment, our FTE, both on the credit and the TCAT side of the house, our completions, again, credit and TCAT, our workforce training hours done through non-credit education. And we're really working to break down the silos between all three of those areas, community college, TCAT, and workforce, so that the student can enter any door and move seamlessly between the three. And then, of course, we will look to eventually, not because we want to win awards, because the awards indicate quality. And we would love to be considered at some point. I think it would be a great mark of achievement to be the Community College of the Year, the Leader College of a Distinction Award through Achieving the Dream. Again, the Leah Myers Austin Award, also through Achieving the Dream, that all of us are part of. And then, of course, there's an Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence, and that's a national award, and we would love to even just get to be a finalist for that. So that's where we are at Chattanooga State, and I appreciate you allowing me to take so much time and sharing this with you, and I would be happy to take any questions should you have them.
Questions or comments for Dr. Ashford? Other than wow?
Well, this is Danny, and I'm sorry I already pushed the button to say wow, because it's not just the plan, Rebecca, it's the passion. And you can have the best plan in the world, but if you don't have the passion to get it done, it ain't gonna happen. And I know that you do. You are such a strong leader, and these are not words on paper. I know that those are things that you are going to do everything you can in helping your staff achieve this. So what a great job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very, very impressive, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miles.
I echo everything that Miles and Danny said, but gosh, your ability to break down barriers with transportation. I mean, we've been kind of preaching that and singing that for years and years and years. So thank you for being that trailblazer. And I think there's just going to be so many benefits. So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. I've got a wonderful team of people, and they really make it happen for our students.
Yeah, if I could just, it's Tom, if I could just pile on here for a second. I had the pleasure to spend the better part of yesterday on campus, first with a very well-attended event that honored a number of local auto dealers who contributed, I think, about $80,000-$85,000 to help with a program to, these are the tools that the students need to become auto mechanics that these various dealers hire and need very badly. But it was a great event, and I think a great sign of how we're able to work with communities and businesses to get the funds that we need to train the students that are going to be these folks' employees. So it was a real neat event. And then Rebecca mentioned the legislative luncheon that we had yesterday. Very, very well attended. And just a great program. So fun day on yesterday.
Thank you for being with us all day yesterday, Regent White.
And I have to chime in as well. Rebecca mentioned that the transportation was funded by charitable groups in the area, foundational groups that have given. And we have to give kudos to Rebecca for some inroads that she made there. I personally happen to know how difficult some of those were. And she has done an amazing job in helping them see the value of what Chattanooga State is bringing to the community and the state as a whole.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Ashford, thank you so much for such an amazing presentation. I had no idea I was sitting next to such a star at the retreat. So fabulous to hear your passion come through. You can't fake that. And your laser focus on making sure that every credential then results in prosperity for the student and then the family as a whole, I think is the whole kit and caboodle, and could not have been presented better. because I think gone are the days when people send their kids to college just to get a degree. When folks are holding on to money tighter than ever because of the situation of the economy, I think folks are going to be very focused and keen on what you just shared. So I think that's going to be a great way for you to increase your student enrollment numbers, just that message. So thank you for that. And I had one quick question, which probably somebody else will have to educate me at a later time, and I don't want to take up this meeting, but you mentioned something about the TCAT being part of the system. Mm-hmm. Is this a unique situation, or am I just blind? Okay.
Yes, we are unique in the state. You know, I don't know exactly what year, but it was an experiment, and I think it was supposed to be a pilot that perhaps would be adopted statewide. But so in Chattanooga, the TCAT is actually part of the organizational structure. We are one. And there are some things that are done separately just to so that they work well with the rest of the system. But honestly, I think this makes us more of an asset to our community. Because when there's a workforce need, we all come to the table all at the same time. There's no competitiveness. And when I say all, I mean credit, TCAT, and non-credit. And students are able to seamlessly move between the systems. Right now, there are a few bumps in that, and we're working very diligently to remove those bumps and level them for our students to make it even easier. But all of our work ties together, and I think it enables us to maximize resources as well. There are things that the college can assist the TCAT with, and vice versa. And so it is a very unique structure in Chattanooga.
Thank you for that. So if it was a pilot, when was the pilot initiated?
That I don't know.
Okay. And I guess maybe for others to answer at a later time, just the follow-up on if it was a pilot, usually that's because you're trying to, like you said, have that happen elsewhere if it was successful. So I'm curious about whether it was evaluated to be seen as a success, and whether
that I can't answer that.
Right.
Long predate me.
Okay.
I'll jump in just a little, tell you that it was actually statutorily created that way, not necessarily a pilot, but that was actually how it was created. So if we at some point ever wanted to separate them, a statute would actually have to be changed for that to happen. For Chattanooga State, this is absolutely the right way for this to be functioning and moving. It's great, but as Rebecca alluded to, we've also had our challenges with some of the issues that occur, not with the colleges, but with federal dollars when they flow down. There's some issues with them not having a separate federal number, and we realized that we lost some money. We had to leave money on the table because of that, and so there's some barriers that we've seen, but for Chattanooga State and the Chattanooga community, this is absolutely the best way for it to be working there. The benefits far outweighed any of the problems or hurdles that we encounter occasionally.
Thank you for indulging me, ladies.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if there are any other questions, but I'm sorry, Vice Chair Reynolds.
Not at all. Anything else from your end, Dr. Ashford, Dr. Deaton?
Nothing from me.
Nothing from me either. Well done, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well done. So, Russ, Rebecca has set the bar very high for December 1, which we appreciate. You said we'd be hearing from 3 others that day with their plans. Rose State, Dyersburg, and am I missing one from our agenda?
Jackson will be the last one. Yeah, we've got to add that in. Mm-hmm. And those 4 will complete the circuit.
Excellent. Good, good, good. Well done. I think it's fair to say that Dr. Ashford put a spring in our step today with such good work coming out of Chattanooga State. So thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. Well, you guys, we have moved through committee chairs fairly quickly this morning, but you can't go anywhere because we still have personnel and audit committees. But Chancellor, let me come back to you to talk about the December board meeting, anything you'd like to enlighten us on. And when Rebecca mentioned her legislative event yesterday, and coincidentally, Dr. Jackson's email for Nashville State's legislative event came through while we've been on this call. Are we going to have a schedule of those at some point too? I know it's still early, but it's starting.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to get that put together and get that out to all the board members so you can see when those events are being held in your local areas.
That would be great. So what would you like to preview for us then on the December board meeting?
Well, we do look forward to seeing everyone in person on December 1st at the system office. After the meeting, we do plan to host our holiday luncheon so that we can all have time to be together to celebrate the holidays as we get ready for a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. Looking forward to that. You'll receive additional information about the board meeting itself from Mary Ann in the next few days. We have a draft agenda that we are putting together now. And as you already know, we will have these wonderful presentations by our colleges at that meeting, and then several policies to review and approve during that time.
And some presidential decisions to make too, right?
And 2 presidents to vote on at that period of time. Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, you guys, with that, if there's no other business or comments that you all have, we're coming to a close here on committee chairs. I do have one reminder. As we move into the holiday season, there are still business items to tend to. And that means it's also time for our annual conflict of interest disclosure forms for the regents. These are due no later than the end of January. You'll receive the forms in advance of the December meeting. We'd love to have you complete those prior to December 1 if possible. And you'll recall that last year this actually came in an electronic format, which hopefully is a more efficient way for everybody to tend to this important piece of business. So stand by for that as well. And if you don't get it in on time, we're knocking on your door. So, so there is a reward for finishing sooner as opposed to later. As Chancellor said, we will look forward to being together on December 1. Obviously, we have other business to attend to today, but on behalf or to the full board, I just want to say happy Thanksgiving before we move into other committee meetings today. And then again, as we move into the holiday season, we'll have that opportunity to celebrate together early next month. So with that, you guys, if there is no other further business to come before our committee chairs today, I'm going to gavel us out, turn this over to Regent Green to call the Personnel and Compensation Committee meeting to order. Please, ma'am.
That sounds good. We'll keep moving.
Okay.
Let's see. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am calling the Committee of Personnel and Compensation of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order. Brian, will you please call the roll and ask the necessary questions for an electronic meeting?
Yes, Chair Green, thank you very much. As this is an electronic meeting, it's necessary to comply with the Tennessee Open Meetings Act. And the 2 questions, I think as everybody's familiar with, is can you simultaneously hear and speak and participate? And number 2, are you alone in the room? If you're not alone in the room, can you please identify who else is in the room with you? So I'll call first the committee members. Chair Green.
Yes and yes.
Regent Burdine.
Yes to both and here.
Regent Varland.
I'm here.
And Regent White.
I'm here and yes to both.
All right, and just to make sure
Yes to both. Sorry, this is Danny. Yes to both.
Okay. Thank you. And just to make sure we're clear on who else is here, Governor Lee, Regent Apple.
Yes, and here and yes to both.
Regent George, Regent Gill, Commissioner Hatcher, Regent House, Regent Lee, Regent Long.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Powers.
Present, yes to both.
Chair Reynolds. Chair Reynolds. Maybe you're muted. I was looking down.
I am so sorry.
Okay.
We're in yes to both. Thank you.
Commissioner Schwinn and Regent Shelton.
I'm here and yes to both.
Committee is assembled, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And to continue kind of our normal electronic meeting and the necessity of having an electronic meeting, this meeting is being held electronically as it's the most economic and efficient way, and the matters being considered with the timely action that's required prior to scheduling our quarterly board meeting, which is in December. So given the necessity to meet electronically, it's a non-controversial and routine item. I propose that the necessity be adopted by unanimous consent. Anyone who wants to have an individual vote on the necessity to meet electronically, you should feel free to object, and in which case we'll have a roll call vote. If there's no objection, the necessity to meet electronically is adopted. Do we have any objection? All right, and hearing none, the necessity is adopted. As we have a quorum, we'll go ahead and get started with our first agenda item, which is faculty emeritus. And Dr. Reed, are you available to provide those recommended proposals?
I am, thank you. Good morning, Vice Chair Reynolds, Regent Green, Dr. Tidings, and members of the board. The recommendations for faculty emeritus are summarized in your materials and have been recommended by the presidents through their own institutional and board policy and reviewed by the board staff and endorsed for recommendation. Just as a reminder of the process, the TBR Faculty Emeritus Policy 5.02.01.10 governs the submission, review, and approval process. College presidents then nominate candidates based on what they consider distinguished institutional services. They may certainly confer with others on the campus, but the nomination is at the sole discretion of the president. Although there are no specific criteria, selection has historically been based on the length of service, significant contribution, outstanding academic achievement, and exceptional embodiment of institutional values. Non-monetary benefits for faculty emeriti can be afforded at the discretion of the president. Some examples may be office space, library privileges, or ID cards with their honorary title. Nominations are then reviewed by the TBR Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and require Chancellor and Board approval due to the prestige of the title and the continuing status of representing the college and the system. Regent Green, this is the summary of the recommendations for the two faculty emeriti, which have been reviewed by staff and recommended now to the board.
Great, thank you so much. This is always such a great pleasure and really a privilege to honor these great service leaders that have been committed to our colleges for so long. So with that, do we have any questions? And to make it official, we will call for a motion.
So moved.
Great, thanks, Miles.
I'll second.
Great, Tom. And Brian, will you go ahead and call the roll for us?
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Madam Chair, it's unanimous.
Great, thank you so much. The next agenda item is institution compensation proposals. And Dr. Fox, will you share more about the recommended proposals?
Sure, thank you. Good morning again, Vice Chair Reynolds, Chancellor, Chairperson Green, and the members of the committee. I'm bringing to you today the compensation proposals. As you all know, this is a standard process that we bring forward each fall that allows our campuses to bring forward compensation proposals, either payment for their comp plan or across the board increases based on using institutional funds for that. Now that we are in the October budget revisions, this is the typical time that we bring those forward. So at the June board meeting, you'll recall that you approved, you authorized this compensation strategy to be included for institutions to submit proposals this fall. They use local or institutional funded funds for these compensation adjustments. So today we are bringing forward to you 5 community colleges that have requested approval to provide an increase. 2 of those are across the board increases, and 3 of those are compensation plan payments per the guidance that you adopted at the June board meeting. And you should have this information in your slot in your packet. The 3 that are doing compensation plan payments are Columbia, Pellissippi, and Roane. The 2 requesting across the board payments are Chattanooga State and Vol State. I believe this is our last slide. I'll take any questions that you have. Yeah, there we go. I thought that should be on there. And this shows the details on that. The 2 that are requesting across the board, it's an additional 1% across the board. And the other 3, as you can see, are the comp plan payments that they are recommending. This has been reviewed by the Office of Finance and Business, as well as with the Chancellor, and we are recommending these comp plan increases for your approval today.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. Do we have any questions? All right. If not, we'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I'll move for their approval.
This is Danny. I'll second.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Danny. And Brian, will you go ahead and call the roll one more time?
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
Regent White.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, committee members and those that put the materials together. We will adjourn the meeting, hearing no further business to come before the Committee of Personnel and Compensation.
Thank you, ma'am. Very efficient. Well done. We will now turn to Regent Burdine for the Audit Committee meeting. And again, our thanks to Regent Burdine for taking the helm as Chair of Audit.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I hereby call the meeting of the Audit Committee to order. General Counsel Lapps, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Chair Burdine. In accordance with Tennessee Code Annotated, I'm going to ask the 2 questions to comply with the Open Meetings Act, which is number 1, can you simultaneously hear and speak? And number 2, are you alone in the room? If the answer is yes to both, please answer yes to both. I call your name. Regent Apple.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Burdine.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Green.
Here and yes to both.
Call the remainder of the roll as well. Governor Lee. Regent George. Regent Gill. Commissioner Hatcher. Regent House. Regent Lee. Regent Long.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Powers.
Here and yes to both.
Vice Chair Reynolds.
Here and yes to both.
Commissioner Schwinn. Regent Shelton.
Here and yes to both.
Regent Womp. And Regent White.
Here and yes to both.
I'm sorry, Regent Varlin, I skipped you.
Did you say Danny? Yes, here and yes to both. Thank you, but I'm not, okay. I'm not on this committee, I don't think.
Right, I was just running through the
okay.
members of the board in case you wanted to participate.
I'm like, huh? When did I get on audit? You don't even on audit.
And I may be doing it differently than Mariah.
No.
And if I am doing differently, I'm doing it wrong, no doubt.
You just caught me. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chair Burdine. The committee's assembled.
Thank you. I think there's only 3 of us left on audit. If I'm left, Joey and Greg. Is that still accurate, Emily?
I guess it is. I just noticed myself. So I need to drop back and work on some committee assignments. So that's a good reminder. But right now we're good to go.
Okay. This meeting is being held electronically as it is the most economically efficient way, and the matters to be considered require timely action and review by the Audit Committee. Given that the necessity to meet electronically is a non-controversial and routine item, I propose that the necessity be adopted by unanimous consent. Anyone who wants to have individual votes on the necessity to meet electronically should feel free to object, in which case we will have a roll call vote. If there is no objection, the necessity to meet electronically is adopted. So Is there any objection? Hearing none, the necessity is adopted. And I'll turn it over to Mike Batson for informational reporting, highlights of audit findings and recommendations. Mike?
Thank you, Regent Burdine, and thank you, members of the committee and other regents. First, start off with the Comptroller's Office reports. And a bit of good news first. We had 4 audits in this past cycle with no findings. Nashville State Community College, Pellissippi State, Walters State, and then the TBR System Office all had audits this past cycle with no findings. So congratulations to everybody there. Great work. Hard to do, and we're certainly glad to not have any findings at those. 2 audits or reviews where we did have recommendations. First, Columbia State. This was not an audit or review technically. It was for their SACS reaffirmation information. The Comptroller's Office performed agreed upon procedures, which are procedures that are required to meet the standards for SACS accreditation information. They don't express an opinion or a conclusion, or it's not an examination or an audit, but they did review Title IV and state financial aid at Columbia State. And there was one minor error that they found for one student of 60 that they looked at related to Title IV financial aid. So again, good work by Columbia State on that engagement from the Comptroller's Office. Next, Southwest Community College had an audit this cycle, and there were 3 findings. One was a limited official use finding that we will discuss a little bit later in executive session. The second finding was that they incorrectly reported or did not report student status changes related to the National Student Loan Database System. And Southwest has reported that they are or have worked with Aleutian IT support at TBR to ensure the correct status codes. There were some errors when students changed from full-time to 3/4 time or 3/4 time to half-time. The report that they were using didn't pick up those nuances there. They have worked to get that report corrected. They have tested that with NSLDS, and it seems to be operating correctly. So that is good. They're still working on another report to help correct for students that were omitted from the original report. Again, working with Lucian support on that. That one's taken a little bit longer, but they are should be good to go there soon with that one. The other finding was an issue that was noted in an internal audit report that Charlotte did back in 2021, where the college incurred over $10,000 for payroll costs for an employee who had stopped reporting to work. Their process did not catch that, and the employee continued to be paid. In the meantime, since Charlotte had issued that report, the college had put controls in place, but when state audit looked at it, they determined that there were some additional controls that they could do to help mitigate the situation in the future. And that was the nature of their finding this time, was just that they enhanced the controls that they were already doing, and that Southwest has implemented the controls that were suggested by the Comptroller's Office. That is all the Comptroller's Office reports that we have. If there are any questions on any of those, I'll be glad to answer those this time. Seeing none, I'll go on to our external reviews. There was one external review for TCAT Jackson. It was a TSAC financial aid review. They did have 7 issues noted in the report. You'll see more of these coming forward. There were some other colleges that have been reviewed since this audit by TSAC. The instances were minor issues of non-compliance that the college worked with shared services here at the board and has rectified the issues there. They've reported any information that they needed to, but that is a good report from THEC and TSAC that they're reviewing those TCAT financial aid files there. There are other internal audit reports in your materials. Be glad to answer any questions on any of those, but not going to highlight those at this point unless you have questions. With that, Regent Burdine, we'll move on to the finding and recommendation logs. Again, we've talked about our new procedures that we have started with the recommendations logs a few months ago, and those continue to work well. In our recommendation logs, there are a few issues that I want to bring to your attention and highlight for some of the older recommendations and give you updates on those. Columbia State has a few related to workforce development and financial aid. As we've discussed in the past, they'd had significant turnover in those areas. But in talking to Erica there at the campus, those are getting traction now. They're moving forward. She scheduled some meetings, and so they are getting those rectified. At Nashville State, they had a couple of recommendations related to human resources, conflict of interest, and the foundation. I spoke recently with President Jackson as well as Henry, the auditor at Nashville State, and as a result of that, I think we're moving forward with those recommendations also. So again, they've had some turnover in those areas, had to take some time for people to get their feet on the ground, but I think we're moving forward there also. Last one I want to mention is Motlow. That is one that we have talked about previously related to workforce development. And in talking to Tammy last week, I think those will be closed soon. They're showing as in progress now, but I think the college has taken care of what they need to take care of to close those recommendations and get those things done. So although they show in progress, I think they'll be closed here the next round. And Tammy's going to work with them to try to help make sure that the procedures they put in place are working as they intended, and try to do some consulting work with them on those. So good news for those three. And those are really the more stale recommendations that are out there. So wanted to highlight the progress on those for you. If there are any questions on any of the recommendations at this time, be glad to answer if you have any.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you. We'll move on to the audit reports and reviews. And just as a reminder to the board that you've been provided the materials regarding comptroller's audit report summaries beginning on page 16, miscellaneous external review summaries beginning on page 21, and internal audit summaries beginning on page 27. These items are required to be reported, but not necessarily have to be discussed unless a board member wants something pulled for further discussion. Are there any items that a board member would like to have further discussed? Hearing none, Mike, if you'll continue on, please.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. System-wide internal audit updates. A few things that I want to bring to your attention here. First and most important is the quality assurance review. I think you all are familiar with that process. We're required by the Institute of Internal Auditors to have an external quality assurance review every 5 years. That will be coming up this year. We've been working on our internal assessments and getting ready for the external review. As of yesterday, we have a team that has agreed to do our external review, and we'll be providing you their information a little bit later. Since it's so close to audit committee, we'll provide that a little bit later. But we've worked hard, and Erica and our quality assurance review committee have worked really hard to try to get a good team. And Jana, some of you may remember Jana Clark from Kansas State University has agreed to lead the team. She was on the team last time, but was not the lead. So glad to have her back. And then we have two other members whose information we'll be providing to you, but they are it's hard to find somebody from a community college that can do these quality assurance reviews. So we have a couple of other auditors from smaller university shops that their systems sort of look like ours. And so we're glad to have that box checked there, and we'll be providing you their information soon. The external review, they'll be here in the state probably sometime in the middle of July is the timing that we're looking at. So we'll be presenting you with more information as we go forward, and we'll be providing them with files for them to review ahead of time. to optimize the time they have here in the state. But again, that you'll be hearing more about that as we go forward, and that will be sometime probably mid-July when they will be on site here. So just wanted to update you on that. And if you remember, Suzanne Walker retired as Pellissippi State Internal Audit Director, and Jason Patterson, President Wise had nominated him to fill that position on an interim basis, and Chancellor has approved. That will be for a period of up to 18 months before they will advertise that position again. Jason has been at the college, I think, for about 20 years. He's been in internal audit for 3. So glad to have him. He'll be a great resource. He has been their information systems auditor for the previous 3 years. So glad to have Jason in interim spot for that position. Last is we had held our internal audit conference at Paris Landing State Park a few weeks ago. Some great training there. We included the LGIs. We had auditors from Austin Peay, ETSU, TSU, Tennessee Tech, and the University of Memphis also were there. So we had a good 2.5 days of training, records retention from Kevin Callahan at the Records Management Office, and 2 auditors from Comptroller's Office, IT Office, Jeff White and Chase Trammell, really gave us a good presentation on information systems risks and sort of state audit's approach to those audits. So it's really good to have them present for us, and good relations there. Always glad to have Jeff and Chase. They've been very good with us to work with over the years. So they presented. Again, we had a really good conference. As you know, in past years, we've partnered with UT, and we'll look at that again next year. This year, it was just us and the LGIs. So again, very productive, very enlightening conference there. Regent Burdine, that is all the highlights I have, unless anybody has questions on any of those items.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions or comments? All right, this informational item requires no action, so let's continue on. Mike, review of annual audits, expenses for the Chancellor and Presidents.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. As you're aware, we're required by state statute to do annual audits of at least 30% of our presidents and or the Chancellor. This year we did audits for 6 of our colleges. The presidents, it's a review of travel, their office expenses, meals and entertainment reporting. And as usual, there are no real issues there. The colleges that were reviewed this time were Dyersburg, Motlow, Nashville State, Roane State, Volunteer State, and Walters. No findings, no significant issues. We did have one observation at Motlow related to third-party reimbursements and timing there, where President Torrance has taken some trips for conferences, submitted travel claims to the college, and was also reimbursed by the conference. He turned those checks in or turned that money in, but we had a recommendation kind of related to the timing of that and adding that information on the front end before the trip occurs so that the people in accounting know what to expect. And it is more upfront, more transparent what's going on there. But again, no issues in terms of the money, but just the timing makes it a little awkward for the college to be looking for those expenses coming back in once they've already reimbursed the president. So that was the only real recommendation for those. And I do want to express that our appreciation to the colleges, their accounting staff, and the presidents. The timing probably could not be worse for these audits. We're required to do them between year end when the books are closed, and have them done to present to you before December 31st to get them to the state. That's really a busy time for their finance people and their accounting people, and they take the time to help us with those and get those done timely. And it's again, probably cumbersome for them, but we do appreciate the staffs at those colleges for giving us the time and giving us the information that we need to get those in time. But this year, just a couple of notes. Expenses overall were up a little bit this year due to COVID going away. There was a little bit more travel, nothing significant, nothing that stands out, but those numbers kind of trended to be up this year. Of course, during COVID, there was very little travel, so that would be expected. And again, business meals and hospitality for the same reason have gone up, but no real trends there for concern. It all looks to be normal uptick there. Again, we're required by statute to do this audit. Fortunately, with our presidents, the risks are very low for us, and we rarely have findings or serious or significant errors in the information, and that was the case again this year. But if there are any questions on the president's expense audits, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions or comments? This too is an informational item, requires no action, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. As a reminder, board members were given materials regarding the items on the consent agenda. The items placed on the agenda require committee approval, but may not need discussion unless someone would like to have something pulled for further discussion. Does anyone have a need to do that? Okay. Back to review of revisions to fiscal year 2023 audit plans.
Hey, Chairman Burdine.
Yeah.
It's Emily. I have a question for Brian, kind of in the just in case department. Since we are down to 3 members, should I vote on this, Brian, to have a 4th representative?
I think that would probably be a good idea, Vice Chair Reynolds. I don't know that I can't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't look whether a quorum is 4 or whether 3 is a majority of any committee, but let's go ahead and have you vote to be sure.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Regent Burdine, I will note that these revisions are pretty typical, where you have an investigation come up and so somebody needs to move something off, or as a president may request items to be reviewed, we may shift some things around here, but nothing extraordinary in these revisions.
Okay. All right, this section requires a roll call vote, so I need a motion first.
I make that motion. It's Mary Lou.
Thank you. And a second?
I second Yolanda.
Thank you. Any discussion? Brian, can you take the roll, please?
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a review of salaries and staffing for the Office of System-Wide Internal Audit. Mike?
Thank you, Regent Burdine. In your materials, you have this summary as well as on screen. The only significant difference here from previous years is the addition of the Director of Internal Audit, Jackie Struckmeyer. Increases in salary, again, 4% salary increases for current personnel. No other changes in certifications or significant differences in salary. So again, fairly routine here, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions or comments? Thank you, sir. This item does require a roll call vote. So, Brian, well, first off, do we have a motion?
So moved, Mary Lou.
And a second, please. Yolanda, can you second?
Yes. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Now, Brian, can you call the roll for the vote, please?
Regent Apple.
Aye.
Regent Burdine.
Aye.
Regent Green.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, a review of salaries and budgets for internal auditors. It's on page 168 of materials. Mike, back to you.
Thank you, Regent Burdine. And this is an informational item. We want this body to be aware of sort of the staffing at the community colleges, their salaries, as well as their budget information. As with our office, just fairly normal increases across for cost of living increases for the community college directors. The only change we mentioned earlier with Suzanne's retirement and Jason becoming the interim at Pellissippi. Again, nothing significant there in terms of salaries and certifications. No real changes or trends there to point out, unless anyone has questions on the salaries. The budget information is always presented also just for your information so that you can kind of see where we are in terms of the budgets. Theirs are generally small. There's a couple of exceptions. And that's one reason we try to help them with the training and those kind of things. As you can see, some of them operating budgets are fairly small, doesn't permit travel to conferences out of state. And so that's why we try to offer the training that we did in the fall so that they can get the hours that they're required for their certifications. But if there are any questions on the budgets or salaries, I'll take those.
Any questions or comments? All right, this is an informational item and also requires no action. So it's time to adjourn the public portion of the meeting. This concludes the agenda for the public session. Unless anyone has any further business to come before the committee, the public portion of the meeting stands adjourned. And since we are adjourned.
This is Danny, and I just want to say something, nothing to do with audit, but just when I was trying to catch it before everybody got off. This doesn't have anything to do with audit, but it has to do with our upcoming meeting, and I just didn't want everybody to be off. You know, I'm sure y'all are all aware how sick Maria Lee is, the governor's wife. She has cancer. And I'm doing a couple of things. I've been keeping up with her and sending her cards and stuff, but I think as a board, it would be nice when we get together on December 1st, if you don't mind, if I brought a card or several cards, that we send her something from the Board of Regents. Or if we've done it, I didn't know. But I mean, as board members, sign a card or something, because he certainly has been good to us. And I know he's just in misery. What do you think, Dr. Tidings?
Danny, I think that's a wonderful idea. Like you, I have personally been doing some things, but I think if we had a card that we could all sign on December 1st, that would be incredible. And I will certainly take care of making sure that's there for everyone to do.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. I know our hospital kids are putting together cards for her, and just, I mean, I just can't imagine him going through this. My heart just breaks for him. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I will share that they are very optimistic that the treatments are working. So just to give everybody that tidbit, people are they are very optimistic, but still it is a rough process.
She has been really sick. Yeah, she's going through it. So hopefully, and I knew that as well, but I just felt bad that we hadn't done anything from all of us. I mean, I have, but you know what I'm saying. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
Is Kim McCormick still on? I guess not. Her daughter's here today. I just want to.
Oh.
Cooper. She works for Commissioner Turner, I believe. I was just told, so she's going to be in our building here just a little bit. But I'll touch base with Kim. So we're about we have adjourned, and the public session's over. Everybody knows how to get on for the executive session. You were given that code earlier. Madam Vice Chair, do I turn it back over to you?
No, sir. You go straight to your executive session, but thank you.
Thank you. See you in a minute.
Thanks.